All right, welcome. Welcome back. Hmm. So, as I said before, tonight's theme is excitement, right? Working with excitement. And how do we work with excitement? So, what brought up this theme was that I'm in the process of selling the house I've been fixing up for the past 7 years and buying a new one, and all the processes are happening. And there's a lot of energy going on and a lot of things to take care of, in addition to my usual busy schedule. And it's been crazy, a lot of chaos. And then one of the realtors that I'm working with are like cheerleaders. They're really, trying to rah me up all the time. And they're like, this has gone through, and now this is happening. And after you get this in, then we'll be able to. And aren't you excited? And I'm like, uh, no, I don't say that, but I'm thinking, no, I'm not excited. I'm right now living still in my house. So haven't moved yet. Things haven't happened. I realize that there's a lot going on, and no, I'm not excited. But they're wanting me to be excited, and they're like, "Oh, you should be excited. This is going really well. Everything's going right on target." Uh, and I realized that they really have an agenda of wanting me to be excited, right? So then it had me think, well, what is excitement and why am I not excited? And what would it mean if I was excited, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I decided to talk about this today. So, excitement on the surface, it's an emotion, right? It's an emotion that stimulates you physically, usually brought on by some kind of cognitive processes first. Something conceptual happens, and then we're anticipating some eventual thing happening in the future, and we get excited about it. I was thinking, well, excitement, it must be adaptive in some way, or else it wouldn't have continued to exist in humans. And I can imagine that excitement, about some potential future helped mankind to stimulate them physically, to get them out of their caves or uh, their wherever they were, to go out and search and put new places or new foods or new tribes or something that they could meet. Um, so there's a certain sense of novelty, excitement for, or energy around novelty, something new happening. Um, yeah. So excitement is any kind of state of arousal. So there is an arousal. You'll notice there's an excess of energy that rises up, and it makes your heart rate increase, and your sympathetic nervous system increases activity. Your brain signals to start reduce releasing all these production of hormones that bring a lot of energy and excitement. Um, and their sense of energy and affect uh, really is so powerful that it can affect people's decision making abilities, right? When I've sat there on retreats and I've had waves of excitement, especially if you've done a lot of retreats towards the end of a retreat, anybody know what I'm talking about, when you're getting ready to go home? And these wave of excitement. And then what I realize when I am very mindful is that excitement feels exactly like anxiety in the body, but the mind sees it as something positive, right? So there's a positive um, cognitive appraisal, right? But excitement leads to impulsivity. When we're excited, it kind of turns off of our ability to think rationally, because we get so excited about whatever it is that we're thinking about that we're not able to see things clearly from step one, step two, step three, or this. We're not looking at the full spectrum, the full picture. We're looking at the one object of our excitement, or the one outcome of our excitement. And then if you've noticed with excitement, the mind starts going a little bit crazy. Have you noticed it starts making up all these potential outcomes, or when this happens and when that happens. And so it's kind of a self-feeding process, feeding on itself, and you get more and more excited. When I feel into this excitement, it feels like there's greed. The noble truth of suffering is caused by greed and craving. There's craving. There's a lot of craving and excitement. It's craving for whatever it is we're typically excited about. So there's a lot of suffering involved involved with excitement, and there's a lot of pleasure too with excitement because the mind sees it as a positive thing. Um, in the categories of emotions, when I looked up excitement, it springs out of the happiness or joy quadrant. So it is considered a positive emotion. But you try trying to speak to anyone they've been really excited about something, and you try to speak to them about it, and you try to bring some kind of reason, depth to what they're thinking. Like, well, actually, that could be pretty dangerous because of A, B, C, and D. Uh, have you noticed that they can't seem to hear you? Right? So I've learned when people are really excited to just ask them questions and not, be the Debbie Downer, so to speak, about because they can't seem to hear you anyhow. Um, so the Buddhist term excitement is udacha, and it's considered a mental restlessness, mental excitement, agitation it's called, and this mental factor in Buddhism that's characterized by disquietude, like water whipped up by the wind, right? It comes from the anxiety, restlessness category. So excitement, restlessness, anxiety are all part of the same energy factor. It's identified in Buddhism as one of the four mental unwholesome factors, one of the 12 secondary unwholesome factors, one of the five mental hindrances, one of the five faults to obstacles to your shamatha meditation, and one of the 10 fetters in the Theravada tradition. So it's in one, two, three, five lists of negative mental factors. Um, Yeah, this jubilant, energizing, positive factor is seen as potentially negative in Buddhism. I have a guerrilla marketing certification I took years ago when I was a business coach and consultant. And they were telling us that the most important thing to do in our marketing messages is to get people excited. Get them excited about your product or service. Get them, let them know exactly how their life is going to be different in the future, and get them excited about this potential future reality. And then they'll buy. Uh, yeah, which is pretty true. So if you look at our marketing messages and a lot of our our news and doom and gloom catastrophe kind of things that fly around, drama, traumas, people are, they're drawn to excitement. They're drawn to stimulation, if you notice. And I think that as a society, we're pretty overstimulated, right? Um, so why is excitement potentially dangerous? Because usually when there's excitement, there's not much mindfulness, right? We get lost. So with mindfulness, we're always talking about being very clear, seeing things clearly, seeing the object of our desires, knowing that desire is present, being with desire in the body. Um, and it's easy to be with our experience when the intensity level is pretty, optimal or low or moderate. But when the energy level gets really high, we tend to lose our mindfulness, the intensity, right? Um, and this excitement has a dragging, pulling us by the nose kind of energy to whatever it is we're enamored with. This excess energy, it propels us forward really fast. And it's easy to get lost, totally lost in whatever it is that we're excited about, if there is something we're excited about. I know that I have moods that I go through, body, mind moods. And there are some time periods in my life where I just wake up excited about everything, have a lot of high energy, very excited, feeling very positive for no particular reasons. It's kind of like a little bit of mania. And I have to be really, really, really extra mindful when I feel these high energy periods because I make a lot of bad choices. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, have you ever had those? I'm the only one. Yeah, because our thinking tends to be idealized. We see only the most ideal version of whatever reality. Oh, this is going to be beautiful and perfect and whatever. So it's not really grounded in reality, typically, the type of thinking we have when we're excited. Um, and so you want to get really curious about excitement. So when I get really excited, I don't make any decisions out of the excitement. I just say, really, oh, excitement is present. Okay, be careful. Don't make any decisions out of this. Keep your mouth shut. You might say something totally inappropriate. Um, yeah. So I've learned that it's a problem state. And when I look back over my life, I can see that a lot of major catastrophes were caused by following these excited mind states. Um, a lot of people, they get excited because they're going to be reliving some experience from their past. They went to some trip before and had a wonderful time. And so now they're anticipating the same trip again. So they get really excited about that. Or they did something and got positive accolades in the past. So now they're going to go do it again and they get really excited. Or perhaps our last romantic interlude was stupendous, and now we're looking for another exciting romantic interlude with whomever is the object of our desire. Um, I used to people would come and tell me about a movie that they loved. Oh, I love this movie. So you got to go see this movie. It's amazing, right? And then after the third person tells me, "Oh, you've got to go see this movie," I get excited. I'm like, oh, let me go see this movie. And then I sit and watch the movie, and sometimes it's really fun. And sometimes I'm like, and why were they excited about this movie? Right? Um, yeah, so I've learned to not get excited about other people's excitement. And that what excites other people may not necessarily excite me, right? And what excites me may not necessarily excite other people. But in the Visuddhimagga, that's one of the Buddhist texts about how to practice, um, they have a lot of things they say about mental excitement. Negative, wind tossed water, wavering as a function, like a flag whipping in the wind, uh, whirling as a manifestation, like scattered ashes struck by a stone, unsystematic thinking that is not grounded in reality, mental distractions, jumping from one thing to another to another. So that and all of those similes and examples of excitement, they're telling you that there's no steadiness, right? There's no steadiness. And what's wrong with excitement is the tranquility, the calmness of mind that's needed to see things clearly is not there, right? When I was a Buddhist nun, everything was designed for us to live a very quiet, calm life. We weren't supposed to listen to music. We weren't supposed to dance. We weren't supposed to go to parties. Only, not eat afternoon. So any potential energizing, exciting factors were removed. We weren't supposed to go shopping. um, just all kinds of things. And I think that was to keep us calm, to keep our practice or our mind tranquil, so that when we do um, meditate, we'll get more out of our meditation. Oftentimes when you go on a retreat, it takes 2, 3 days of meditating before the mind calms down enough to even be able to see anything clearly, right? Because things tend to be jumping and shaking. This agitation doesn't help us with our practice. Um, but since it's rooted in joy and it's rooted in pleasure, people don't see the dangers of excitement. Um, and the results of our actions taken in excitement often lead to suffering. Not always, but often. Um, yeah. I was married to someone who was addicted to excitement. And there's a lot of delusion. This, irrational thinking and excitement. It's called delusion and impulsivity. And he would just get the idea that we owned a martial arts studio together. And he would say, I'm going to build a whole new waiting room for us from scratch this weekend. And I'm like, well, it took a week to build our previous waiting room. How are you going to do it over the weekend? With help, it took a week. Um, you haven't gone to Lowe's, you don't have the material, you need to reroute some of the electrical, reroute some of the plumbing. So I would be asking him these questions. Well, don't you have to do this? Don't you have to do that? And what about this? And what about that? And he would get so frustrated with me because he saw me as uh, ruining his whole project. Oh, you're so negative. You always just want to put me down, right? Well, a week later, when the waiting room was still not done, and our life had been total chaos, and our business was dust and dirt everywhere, trying to move around all this stuff, I would be like wanting to say, "I told you so," but uh, it would until the next time it would happen, some new project he would get really excited about. But when I was raising my kids, I got to see excitement really clearly. Anyone here who's raised kids can probably see how kids deal with excitement. And since I had my practice and I did not have a very exciting life, as a single mother, and I would just watch them. They'd get so excited about some party or some event that they were going to, and then the closer they came to the event, the more excited they got and the more irrational they got, and they'd start snapping at their sibling and snapping at me, and they would be forgetting everything, you know, run to the door, get in the car. Well, do you have your this? Do you have your towel? Do you have your bathing suit? Do you have your what gifts? Whatever you need. And they'd be like, huh? Uh, so I would see that the excitement made them kind of brain dead, right? And then they would get really impatient, right? Then they would start fantasizing out loud about all the wonderful things that are going to happen. So I would hear about how they would build up this whole exciting scenario. And then when they got to the event, they would run out and they'd be searching for giddily, racing to try and find the things that they perceived in their mind was going to be there beforehand. And if they found the things that they imagined were going to be there, that would get them even more excited. If they didn't, they would get really frustrated and be like, "Well, where are the balloons? Where are they?" So and they were so hard to manage them when they were in this really excited space. And every time, whether it was really positive or negative, at the end when I was bringing them home, they were always exhausted, overwhelmed, and grumpy on the way home, right? Anybody raised kids and seen this pattern? Anybody been a kid and seen this pattern? Right? And I would be like constantly trying to keep them grounded and it's okay. And um, yeah. But that made me curious. Well, if that's how they're acting, and they're, obvious, easy to see how kids are get overly excited, but how do I get excited? What excites me? When do I go into a rational anticipation? Um, what stops me from being present with whatever is? And I started to really see that overexcitement usually didn't work well for me. Um, yeah. And and I've also learned that I enjoy the energy that excitement brings, and it's not a bad thing. I really enjoy the energy excitement brings, but I just try to stay calm myself and ground myself to not make a bunch of impulsive decisions while I'm in that state, right? Um, yeah. There was a lady I was friends with years ago, and she was addicted to being excited. And she was, well into her 60s, maybe 70s. But she had this curly, bobbing hair. And every time she talked about something, all her, oh my, her curls and would just dance all over her head with all of her plans for whatever exciting next trip or training or uh, a purchase or whatever party. She liked to throw parties. Um, and she had a great amount of zeal. And she would get angry at anyone who didn't get excited along with her. What's wrong with you? She wanted everyone to be as excited as she was. And I would I found her really amusing. I would kind of laugh and enjoy her energy, but I also found her kind of exhausting to be around. So yeah, that friendship, I started pulling away more and more. Um, from a mindfulness perspective, excitement is rooted in a lot of thinking and planning and expectations, you know, future kind of thinking. That my dreams are finally coming true or something great is going to happen. Um, and a lot of people are addicted to excitement. They're addicted to stimulation. I think it's like, I would say that it might just be an epidemic right now. Um, and then, this friend I had, she would, even after an exciting trip or an adventure, then she would come back with all her pictures and slideshow, and I would have to sit for 2 or 3 hours while she went through. So she would live off the fumes of her excitement for a while afterwards. And then she would start immediately planning her next big party or trip or training or um, purchase, right? Yeah. Um, so when I'm excited, I have to be really, really mindful to keep bringing myself back into the present moment, right? And I found that the more I stay in the present moment, the less excited I get about any imagined future because we really don't know what's going to happen. It's not going to always be some ideal version. It rarely is, right? And how can I be present with the way it is if I'm projecting some idealized expectation? Um, reality might be pleasant, it might be unpleasant, it might be neutral. But to me, I find a lot more joy uh, in the tranquility that mindfulness brings, being present with mindfulness. Um, I certainly have learned to not make impulsive decisions out of excitement. When excitement is really present and it's not going anywhere, it's just here, go to the body, feel the jumping anxiety kind of energy dancing around. Um, and I actually enjoy the extra energy coursing in my body during those times. I can get a lot more done, like projects or things around the house when uh, when I'm in one of those states. And I looked it up. They said that excitement takes about 20 minutes to run its course through your body. That's the minimum because it gets all the cortisol and adrenaline and everything moving. It takes about 20 minutes to calm down. Um, yeah. So excitement is not a bad thing. It's normal part of being a human being. But what is your relationship to excitement? Are you addicted to excitement? Are you looking to satisfy your, to create scenarios for more excitement? Um, do you love it, crave it, addicted to it? Let excitement rule all your decisions, your future, your life? Or can you see excitement as excitement and work with it mindfully and not let it drag you from one pursuit to another? It may be after the excitement dies down that mindfully exploring, oh, yeah, I do want to go do that retreat or that training or that. uh, Yeah, that would be in my highest good. But that's when the mind is able to think rationally and clearly, because you need some level of tranquility so that everything's not shaking before you can see things clearly. Here is Wendell Berry. I go among trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. Then what is afraid of me comes and lives a while in my sight. What it fears in me leaves me, and the fear of me leaves it. It sings, and I hear its song. Then what I'm afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear in it leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. After days of labor, mute and consternations, I hear my song at last, and I sing it. As we sing, the day turns, the trees move. Hmm. So thank you for listening to my exploration on excitement. I hope this was stirred up something within you to look at your own relationship with excitement and how you work with it, and not to demonize it, but to also to be very wise in your relationship with excitement.